Hello, my name's Professor Rachel Julian from Leeds Beckett University in the UK, and this is a short introduction to thinking about participatory research. And that's the kind of research where the communities themselves who are affected or interested in the subjects that we're researching, be it health, education, social policy, inequalities, all sorts of different things, where those communities themselves get involved in the design and even the sort of like data collection and have some ownership over what we're finding out. And the reason this is important is we have to think about not just doing research upon people where researchers have traditionally decided what's important, but actually how people understand that, how we communicate, and also how we think about the impact of our research and the changes that we want to occur. Participatory research is often about the social change that we want, about understanding the experiences and situations in which people live. By listening to and working directly in partnership with the communities, we can make sure that they are empowered through the research process, they have ownership over their data, and we create research results which have meaning to the affected communities. Research is all about creating knowledge. It's about thinking and reflecting upon what we know and what other people know and asking questions of the data that we collect or the information that we have. It can enable us to think about the experience of victims or isolated communities or about our own work from numerous different perspectives. We can ask all kinds of different questions. Giving us that opportunity to reflect on what we already know, and knowledge can be created through experiential knowledge. So the experiences of people in the community are also knowledge, as well as the expert knowledge provided by researchers and other types of expert. But the research can evidence the kind of experiences or situations of communities as well. Participatory research is about challenging the ways in which power is evident within research. Traditional forms of research where an external or expert researcher decides the research question, the mode of data collection, and the participants are subjects in that research and not partners, keeps all the power with the researcher and with the expert, and although it can be used very effectively, it limits the ownership and data. So it's not very empowering for the participants. If we think about the people who are in the affected communities, maybe those who are experiencing health inequalities, education inequalities, conflict and exclusion, those people themselves have knowledge, and as participatory methods can give us an emancipatory and empowerment approach to research in which those participants and those excluded communities become part owners. They become involved in designing the research questions. They become involved in the data collection. They know what's happened. They own some of that data and are all included all the way through to the dissemination and use. And in fact, much where research results are designed to have direct local impact, people have found that by having people owning their own data, owning the research, they're more likely to use the data and results in the changes that we want to see happen. Academics are trained to do research and to teach it, but researchers are also present in think tanks and public organisations, NGOs, and within communities. And we distinguish between theory and practice when we learn about things. And in our work, the reality is that the two are very interdependent. We use sometimes the theory in our practice, and the knowledge that we develop in practice, in programming, can lead to theory development. We sometimes refer to people who work in communities as community researchers or practitioner research. And it's true that not everyone wants to do research, but it can be a part of the work we're involved with. It can be a part of direct empowerment of communities, and it can be a part of learning. And even if we just give everybody some research skills, it means that they can understand what researchers are doing when they ask questions and when they collect data. Participatory research does demand a high commitment to equal partnership and building that, and a long-term view of sort of like the process and the partnership and the commitment to a particular community. So community-based researchers, seeing people as participants and collaborators, seeing that the community understand the problem in the same way as the researcher do, and that the control over the process of research are shared. So all of this really demands that researchers get to know the communities in which they want to work. So whereas they might be in more traditional research be identified through data or statistics or just observation, in participatory research it demands that we go and talk to people. It means that we need to listen to them. We need to understand what communication processes are going to be needed in order to involve them and create these partnerships. We need to recognise that the people themselves already have a lot of knowledge. If you take, for example, understanding education inequalities, people in a community will absolutely know what is good education, what the opportunities are, and what the disadvantages are for different people. And so for us to know that that is important and that's the starting point means that we need to have the time available. We need to have the time where we listen to them and sit in an environment in which it makes them comfortable, in which they have some control. So be that we go and share food together, so that over sort of like lunch times or evening meals, people are free to come and share and understand what you mean by research and what your background is. It requires that researchers be flexible. Okay, so if we're going to work in equal partnership with communities and allow them to have some ownership and control over the research, it means that we have to be able to take some loss of control, be able to be flexible in sort of like timescales or the way in which the actual data collection methods or research methodologies that we use, and also that the time needed to form those partnerships and to create the trust will determine to some extent the success of the partnership and the success of the research project. There will be different ideas, there will be different problems emerge through those partnerships. What may appear to be a problem at first might be hiding an underlying issue. For example, seeing health inequalities might reveal underlying problems around sort of like poverty, conflict, or other forms of exclusion. And so we have to be able to understand how the existing knowledge and our ideas as researchers can be brought together to build strong research partnerships. We will end up with local communities with some research skills and able to argue and participate with us in that research, but it's going to be a journey that we take together. So the essence of it is that we co-design and collaborate throughout the research process. And this will involve sort of like defining the community. So who is it that's impacted? And if we're researching about exclusion and marginalisation, we should be carefully asking ourselves the question of who is those communities, who's representative of them, and how is it that they will be able to make sure that they're heard, whether or not you form new committees or open meetings or other forms of participation. The important thing is that we have an idea of who is the community, how we engage with them, and what it is that they're most interested in. We're likely to have a broad research area or even a very specific thing that we're investigating. So this gives us a starting point for knowing who should be involved, because it should be those who are impacted by the research. The actual research question will be decided through that collaborative partnership, and it'll be a combination of what the community see in their experience and what they understand as an immediate issue that needs to be understood, and that of the researcher with an external view of maybe the wider context as well and the theoretical framework in which those problems or challenges or situations exist. So you pull that together. And throughout the sort of like the choice of research methods, and you can do sort of like all kinds of creative things or surveys or experiments. You can do all of those through participatory methods, but they need to be designed with the coordination of the communities themselves. You can define who has the different roles and responsibilities. So who is going to identify the participants for data, who is going to actually hold the data and manage it, because you've still got the ethical and security concerns. And you also want to ensure that your community is ready, it has the necessary capacity and skills to carry out this. So there may well be time needed for sort of more community training, more community discussion. So it can take longer. And the co-design and the collaboration continues. Once the data is collected, you will have worked out how to anonymize it, or depending on sort of like if it's a case study. But you also want to involve people in the analysis. When you look at that data, do you all see the same findings, see the same conclusions? Do the findings reflect what the community sees or thinks that has been shared during the research? So even the interpretation, the analysis, and getting to those final findings is important. And because research is about change, it's about having an impact, it's about trying to influence policy and practice, as well as participate within academic debate. The involvement of the local community in the dissemination of those results can be that it gets to the right people at the right time. And we're going to look through all of those.